Hello, everybody. It's your boy Jmulls, and today we have to dive into some of your theories for the future of Final Fantasy XIV. Patch 7.4 had some massive reveals to it. We're starting to get a grasp as to where this story is truly going, and I asked for your theories, and now it's time to react to them. Let's get into this, shall we? To start us off, we have at Super Ramo 619, who says, I think the Winterers are the bad guys, but not the threat. Basically, they are the next Warriors of Darkness. Now, with the way the story is being framed right now, it wouldn't really surprise me if this is one of their long-term goals for the story. As of now, because of what Calix and Halmerud said, it seems as if the Winterers' goal is to find a way for life to be able to basically exist almost like a fallout shelter kind of way until after this great withering comes and goes, so that life can prevail on the other side. The Endless was one of their ideas to find a way around all of this. And while we philosophically and just fundamentally disagreed with the Endless as a concept, I think the way they are writing the Winters right now, namely just Calix and Halmerud, again, with the limited information that we actually have right now, they're portraying them as if their intentions are still good. And if there's anything that we have come to know in Final Fantasy XIV, when in the face of a greater evil, we can ally ourselves with people whose intentions are good. And it does seem as if the big overall catastrophe that we're going to have to prevent in the coming expansions is going to be this great withering, whatever that ends up being. What I think is going to happen is we'll clash heads and basically butt heads with Winterer, who will have different ideas for us to like survive this great withering. And we're going to try and go a different path. It just makes narrative sense if at some point in this story, that at some point the great withering gets so bad that we have to ally ourselves with Winterer. That just feels like a natural plot progression we're going to have at some point. I think their big writing goal should be to make Winterer not just feel like a rehashed Warriors of Darkness plotline. Because the fact that we already have people calling this right now, as with this theory, right? I don't think storytelling has to be unpredictable at all times, right? With good foreshadowing, you should be able to predict some things. But this does kind of feel like a plotline that might be a bit too on the nose and a bit too obvious. They'll have to find a way to make this truly unique for the story going forward. I have confidence that they will, or that if they're going for this to be a parallel to the Warriors of Darkness storyline, that they're going in that direction with intention. It'll be interesting to see. But now let's move on to the next one. Now this one gets me. Next up, we have at Mazdian, who says, what the EA figured out might still come to happen. I definitely see that they will play on the theory of the Big Freeze. For those who don't remember Ultima Thule, it was the final zone of Endwalker. And in that zone, we met up with a bunch of different, basically memories of different alien civilizations, and we learned how they met their end. One of the civilizations we met were the EA. They were basically super smart. They had uncovered pretty much everything. Their mastery of science and physics and the way the cosmos works is unparalleled. However, sometimes ignorance is bliss, as they say, for the knowledge of the EA proved to be their own downfall. And what they uncovered drove them into depression and nihilism. They realized, hey, the universe is expanding, and eventually it's going to keep expanding and it's going to rip itself apart, basically. All the stars will burn out, and everything's just going to essentially be trapped in an infinite void of loneliness. And it's based on a very real theory we have in physics called the heat death of the universe. The EA came to understand this, and it drove them insane. They lost the will to live, they lost the will to continue to advance because they'd already understood basically everything there was to know, and every road led to this. It all led to the heat death of the universe. And while we don't know that much about what the Great Withering is going to be that Halmerud talks about at the end of 7.4, the name at least does seem to like kind of line up with this overall idea and concept from the EA. Now, do I think this is really interesting? Absolutely. But do I think this is going to be what the Great Withering ends up being? I don't really think so, because the heat death of the universe is not something that's going to happen in the near future, unless because of some magic magical shenanigans that it's accelerated in the universe of Final Fantasy XIV. Like, maybe they can go in that direction. I just don't really know if that's going to be the route they take. The reason the heat death of the universe was such a terrifying concept for the EO was because, well, they figured out immortality, and unless I'm completely misremembering the zone, their whole thing was like, look, if we live forever, then we're still going to meet this fate. No matter what we do, no matter what happiness we acquire, it all ends the same, so what's the point of anything? Now, while I don't think that will necessarily be what the Great Withering ends up being, I think they're going to try and draw a parallel to that. And it wouldn't surprise me if over the course of our adventures, for some reason, we go back to Ultimate Thule to, like, pick at the minds of the Ea that is still there. Obviously, they're not the real Ea, the Ea, like, gone. Those are just the memory of the Ea, but still the same idea. It wouldn't surprise me if, for whatever reason, we end up going back to the Ea just to find out more. I think the Great Withering is supposed to be a more immediate threat, and the Great Heat Death of the Universe just doesn't really fit that bill. But if they wanted to play on this and have, like, some kind of mechanism exist in the story of Final Fantasy XIV, where, like, the death of Hydaelyn and Zodiac or whatever ended up accelerating the heat death of the universe, I think Final Fantasy XIV's story is at its best when it's get really dark and depressing and also just existential. And if it can find some way to incorporate, like, this overall feel that the Ea had and have us feel the same, but for the Great Withering, God, that could produce such a cool vibe for the story going forward. I'd be really interested to see how they can actually handle some great coming apocalypse. Maybe what they could do is have it act like a force of nature, like there's not just one person or a group of people behind the Great Withering or whatever it is, like how it was Meteion behind the Final Days. Just have the Great Withering be this force of nature that is inevitable. How do we respond to that? How do we cope with that? I think that could be really interesting for them to explore. Now, this one's a really funny one to think about. We have at It's Not a Spoon who says, theory, 8.0 is going to be a big timeline reset, and we go through everything again to try to change how Hydaelyn and his shards end up. Okay, so off rip, I don't think they're gonna go in this direction. I think that's a plot line that'd be probably better explored in like a single player RPG as opposed to an MMORPG, because I feel like by doing this, we wouldn't really go anywhere new. It would just largely be old zones, and maybe that could work. I just don't really think like that's going to be the direction they go for the future of Final Fantasy XIV, at least right now. Also, my biggest concern with this would be that it could potentially feel like it invalidates the story of the game all the way through Endwalker, to where we have to like find this like idealized better route of circumstances we have to go down to deal with whatever the Great Withering is. Like, again, I'm not entirely opposed to it. As is the case with a lot of these like theories, I think there's a way to execute on this idea that have to be really cool and interesting. It's just degree of difficulty for actually obtaining one of those good routes. Here, I feel like it's higher than for other theories and would just take way more effort and be like way harder to thread that needle. And there's another thing for me personally where it's like, I think there's so many other locations I would love for us to go to and explore. I don't really know if the place necessarily just to go retread a bunch of old zones. They could do it, and maybe with like the different events that we have to undergo, we have to go to different locations. That could be interesting. I just don't really see them doing something like this as of right now. Maybe it's like kind of like how we went to Elpis during Endwalker, and we went pretty much back in time to learn about things and information that we needed to acquire in order to return to our reality and then deal with like Meteion. Maybe they could do something similar to that for this new narrative arc, but I don't think it would be like in 8.0, maybe like 9, like 10.0, and maybe only for like a zone or two. Now, having said that, I personally wouldn't mind an expansion where we did go back in time, but to the War of the Magi. I don't know why we would do that. I just think that would be a really dang cool setting, especially since for the longest time, we have like navigated and spelunked our way through so many of these ruins and various, well, I guess ruins. It'd be cool to see what they actually look like in their heyday. Now here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with your own theory for the future of Final Fantasy XIV, or if you got a hot take about the future of Final Fantasy XIV, leave it down below. I plan to react to them in a future video. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And the Arcadian raid was absolutely phenomenal, and I broke down as to why it was so good. You should check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.